Now, the Philippines is grappling with a housing backlog of more than 2.2 million units, a shortfall that grows each and every year. The government's Pambansang Pabahay Para sa Pilipino program aims to deliver 6 million new homes by 2028, but the mission is unfolding amid slower economic growth, high construction costs, and pressure on the national budget. On the upside, borrowing costs are easing, with interest rates expected to fall by another 50 basis points by the end of the year, opening a window of opportunity for developers, investors, and home buyers. Joining us now is Henry Yap, the Senior Undersecretary of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, to discuss where the business opportunities are, how the private sector can help close the housing gap, and what it will take to deliver affordable, safe, and sustainable homes at scale. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning.
Okay, talk to us about the affordable housing sector in the Philippines, sir. Where would you say it is right now?
Right now, we are still getting our developers to construct more socialized housing. There has been a backlog that was started many years ago, but unfortunately, in the first 3 years of this administration, we were not able to produce as much housing. Recently, we have recalibrated those targets, and we aim to complete and finance as much as 1.2 million houses by the end of this administration.
When we talk about the affordable housing space in the Philippines, we talk about it in the context of the entire administration, so the 6-year terms. So we've got 3 years left. We're at the halfway marker. How far are we right now from where you would like to be?
Yes, so far we have completed 425,000. So we still have about 800,000 to complete by 2028.
And there was a change in secretaries here. From Secretary Jerry Acuzar, he had the goal of 6 billion by 2028. Now we have Secretary Aliling. How has the trajectory of this agency changed since? The trajectory and the priorities?
Yes. When we started the Pambansang Pabahay Para sa Filipino program in 2022, we were concentrating on vertical housing. That meant that most of the houses were either 4 stories, 5 stories, and above. Unfortunately, it takes a while for many of these projects to be completed. Second, we felt that these units are unaffordable and cannot be sustained given the higher amount for purchase values. So when the new Secretary Aliling, started 2 months ago, he recalibrated the program with the approval of course, of our president. And now we expanded the vertical housing to include horizontal housing. We're also reviving the community mortgage program, which allows us to acquire the land where many of the informal settler families are occupying. We've also revived the issuance of the certificate of eligibility to previously proclaimed areas. We have also started a program on rental housing for those who cannot afford to purchase. So this is the expanded program that we have started just 2 months ago.
Okay. Sir, when you talk about the prices in this segment, what are the purchase prices for a house and lot, and how much is the purchase price for a condominium in this affordable space?
Yes, currently the price ceiling for horizontal or house and lot units are 850,000 and below. And for condominium, it is at 1.8 million and below.
Mas mahal ang condominium talaga.
Yes,
sir.
that's the reason why we had to recalibrate, because despite the fact that we are providing support, it's still very difficult for many of our Filipinos to afford a 1.8 million condominium vertical housing.
Yeah, and as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the broader problem of the agency, as with any agency, is funding. But when it goes down to really what's on the ground, the problems on the ground in this sector, it's affordability and the availability, the production, the number of housing units we can provide. Would you agree, sir?
Yes, fully agree with that. Right now, we are only getting as a sector-based budget from our government appropriations only about 6.5 billion pesos. This includes already the budget for the department as well as its key shelter agencies.
So that's for the whole sector, 6.5 billion pesos.
Yes.
It sounds like a lot, pero kulang pa rin, ano, sir?
Yes. Next year, the targeted national expenditure program actually has a lower budget than this year. It is only being projected at 5.5 billion.
Why the decrease?
we have to compete with the physical space available in the whole government. So there is need to prioritize. So different agencies would compete for budget, and that's how we eventually arrive at our number.
Of course. And how much of a budget did you request for 2026? In 2025, the budget you received was 6.5 billion. In 2026, the budget you are expecting to receive on the table, it's about 5.5 billion as Congress debates that now. How much did you actually request?
The whole housing sector actually requested 225 billion. But we're only being allocated 5.5 billion next year.
What can you do with that, sir, especially within your agency?
Right now, we really have to tap the private sector to help us. Given the limited funds given to government, we have to encourage and to make it available to the private sector for them to be incentivized so that they will participate in producing the housing requirements that what we currently need.
With a budget like that, how would you describe that budget, that 5.5? How would you describe that, sir? Is that for you? Is it a minuscule amount? And what can you do with that?
Yeah, basically the budget will dictate the amount of houses that we can actually construct. This is from the government side. For example, in the case of NHA, they are being allocated 2.2 billion only. So based on that 2.2, they can only do approximately 2 to 3,000 units if we equate it at 850,000 per unit. Mm-hmm. So that already indicates to you the number of units that we can construct.
Yeah.
Thus, we have to depend on the private sector to participate. Luckily, with the recalibrated program of Secretary Ping, we were able to get commitments from the private sector to develop 251,000 units in the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. This will substantially augment the requirements needed for our socialized housing program.
This is a challenge that both the government and the private sector take on. From the government side, we've got the NHA, the National Housing Authority, and we got the SHFC, the Social Housing Finance Corporation, creating the homes. And then there's the private sector also. What's the mix? What's the mix? How much does the government produce, and how much is expected of the private sector in an ideal situation, and what's happening now?
Yeah. In an ideal situation for socialized housing, we really would need the government to come in. But given the budget that we are being allocated, we really now have to depend on the private sector to participate. However, given the concerns, we have to provide incentives, and these incentives are actually the reason why we are addressing now the commitments. No? Let me use an example. The interest rates before by Pag-ibig for socialized housing at 850,000 is at 6.25%. That means a borrower will have to pay 5,200 per month. Just recently, last month, the board of Pag-ibig approved lowering that interest rate from 6.25 to 3%, thus reducing the monthly amortization to 3,500. That is about a third of decrease in the monthly amortization that they have to pay.
Yeah, that's a big step.
That is a big step.
Because affordability is a key challenge in this sector. And sir, as interest rates are headed lower, we're expecting 50 basis points, 25 in the second, a cut of 25 bips in the second half. How much do you expect that 3% to decrease?
Right now, we're still working on that number, but fortunately, our budget also been provided with an interest subsidy. Mm-hmm. This interest subsidy, although not big, will still help out in bringing down the monthly amortization. Yeah. So from 3,500, if we're able to get a continuation of that interest subsidy, that number can still go down to 2,700 per month. Mm-hmm. That is effectively almost a 48% cut from the actual amount that they have to pay a month ago.
Ideally, by the end of this administration, where would you like to see that interest rate, sir? From 6.25, now 3%, where would you like that interest rate to be in order to be able to make housing more affordable in the Philippines for this sector?
Yes, we of course prefer that it goes lower. But right now, what we've done is Pag-ibig has come out with a program for the first 30,000 borrowers that they will provide 3% interest for 10 years previously, what they would do, they would have a interest rate only for 5 years. And then depending on the status of the borrower at that point, then they will recalibrate the interest rate.
Yeah.
But now with the new program, we were able to get Pag-ibig to approve a program that will allow low interest rate for as high as 10 years.
Yeah, and Pag-ibig is really the lender in this space. The private sector, they're scared because, it's a challenging market to loan to. So everybody looks to Pag-ibig. Can you talk to us about the role? How big of a role does Pag-ibig play in financing in this sector, sir?
Yes. Pag-ibig is basically a provident fund, but its mandate also requires that more than 70% of its fund be allocated for housing. Today, Pag-ibig has over 1.1 trillion in assets, and about 871 billion of that is actually allocated for housing loans. So that's a huge sum of their total asset being allocated now for housing loans.
So if the private sector were to come into this space, what would your ask for them be? Where would you want them to see develop homes? Would you want them to focus on vertical or horizontal? Maybe vertical because it's the most expensive. And where is the need for housing in the Philippines, sir?
Okay, we would want to allow them or want them to come in the house and lot category. This is basically the need. And at the same time, this is where many of our socialized housing category affordability level is. At the same time, we would want to see many of these developments come in the Central Luzon and in the Calabarzon area.
Yeah.
These are the areas very near Metro Manila, the
because
growth
they need to
zones.
be high growth, and at the same time, the property prices need to be affordable, low enough that the prices can be attractive.
Yes, and these are the areas also very close to where their work are, so there will be no displacement. The cost of having to move from their house to their work areas now will be reduced. So many of this will come into play when we have developments very near Metro Manila.
By 2028, sir, by the end of this administration, where would you like to see the supply and demand picture when it comes to affordable
Well, we would
housing?
hope that the gap would now be narrowing. We know that this is also partly because of the demand, but hopefully with the awareness to increase budget for housing, we hope that that gap will be narrower by the time we reach 2028.
And for the private sector to really join in the national housing push, are there new incentives being offered for developers? Maybe reduced development loan assistance. What incentives are you providing the private sector to come into this space in a more, in a more meaningful and in a game-changing way?
Just like what we've done to the end users, we're also bringing down the interest rates to developers. Pag-ibig is taking the lead now. Pag-ibig has lower interest rates compared to the commercial banks. At the same time, we've also extended the period of payment. Recently, Pag-ibig approved the rental housing program, which would now allow developers or entrepreneurs to provide rental housing at a more affordable monthly rate to our low-income groups. Incidentally, the interest rate being given for rental housing loan is now at 3% and payable over 30 years.
And beyond affordability, we also need to make sure that these communities, these housing communities, are livable, conducive, convenient, and just nice for the families that live in it. What are you guys doing to ensure that these communities thrive?
Yes. Basically, we're not limiting our development to just the houses. We're now looking at livable communities. By livable communities, we are providing support to infrastructure, to the roads, to the open spaces, to the common facilities and the like. We're also talking to agencies like the ICT to provide free Wi-Fi in the area. So these are the things that would complement and make the properties more livable than just having a roof on the
especially
head
Wi-Fi.
of these families.
That's like a basic utility nowadays. Okay, sir, what's your outlook for the sector in 2026 and beyond?
We are very glad that with the recalibrated, expanded 4PH program, we're getting a lot of interest from the private sector, and we do hope that they continue with that promise and deliver by 2028.
Hopefully, everybody needs a home and a good one too. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Yap.
Thank you very much.